Imagine waking up on a common morning and listening to your 3-year-old pronouncing words in a language you have never taught and that he theoretically never had contact. Now, think of this language being German, spoken with fluency by a Mexican child, in the middle of the busy Mexico City. This is exactly what happened to Guadalupe Ramirez on a February morning 2018, while the smell of strained coffee mingled with the noise of the buses on Insurgent Avenue. Guadalupe, a 32-year-old woman who worked as a secretary in a public agency, prepared breakfast while Santiago, her son, played in the room. Since the birth of the boy, she raised him alone, after her father abandoned them when the baby was only 6 months old. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment at Colonia Roma Norte, where each day was a battle won with strength and determination. Santiago was a normal child, cheerful, full of energy, in love with his mother's clubs and chasing Cinnamon, the Malhada cat. Nothing in his life suggested that something extraordinary was about to happen. Until, that morning, while serving the soft beans, Guadalupe heard something that made her freeze in place. A German phrase, clear and accurate, leaving his son's mouth, "Echt Wasser trinken bite." She dropped the spoon and turned to the living room, where Santiago played with her carts. The voice was his, but the words made no sense in Spanish. When he questioned the boy, he responded naturally in his children's Portuguese, "Mother, I'm thirsty." Guadalupe breathed relieved, attributing it to a misunderstanding or the fertile imagination of a child. But the relief was short-lived. During breakfast, while Santiago ate his quesadillas with jam, he murmured, from the broad schmecked gut. This time there was no doubt, they were German words, pronounced with an intonation that did not match that of a Mexican boy. When Guadalupe asked what he had said, Santiago translated without hesitation, "What a tasty, mother. Quesadilla is good." Her heart accelerated. It wasn't just a mechanical repetition, he understood what he said. That night, after putting Santiago to sleep, Guadalupe called her sister, Maria, a nurse in a hospital in town. "Mari, do you think a child can speak a language without ever having learned him?" The sister, skeptical, replied that this was impossible, that he should have heard something on TV or on the street. But Guadalupe insisted, "That's not all, Mari." He translated. He knew the meaning of the words. Maria didn't know what to say. The next day, things got worse. Santiago woke up earlier than usual, sitting on the bed, looking out the window with a posture that did not match his 3 years. When Guadalupe came in to greet him, the boy turned with a look that, for a moment, didn't seem to be his. "Guten Morgen, Anna," he said, with a sad smile and a familiarity that froze his mother's blood. "Anna? I'm your mother, Santiago." The boy blinked, as if he woke up from a trance, and replied, "Yes, mother. Good morning." But the damage was already done. Who was Anna? And why did your child call her with such intimacy? The following days turned into a silent nightmare. Guadalupe was trying to keep the routine, taking Santiago to school, working, returning home, but every moment had become a vigil. The apartment, once cozy with its peach-colored walls and plants in the window, now seemed like a scenario of observation, where each word and gesture of the son were analyzed with distrust. Most of the time, Santiago acted as always, played, laughed, ran behind the cat. But there were times when his eyes changed, as if a memory of others took account of him. On Wednesday morning, while preparing the lunchbox for work, Guadalupe listened to Santiago talking alone in the room. It was not uncommon, but when it approached, the words paralyzed her. "Anna, ich vermisse dich. Wo bist du?" The voice was childish, but the pain and intonation was a much older someone, as if it was years of longing. Upon entering, he found his son sitting on the floor, surrounded by toys, with too far away from a child. "Who are you talking to, my love?" he asked. "With Anna, mother." "But she doesn't answer," he said, "really." "And who is Anna, Santiago?" The boy paused, as if he sought memories he shouldn't have. "It's my wife. I'm beautiful, has hair like the sun and blue eyes. I like it when she laughs." The naturalness with which I spoke those words, "my wife," was scary. Guadalupe felt a shiver. You have no wife, Santiago. You're just a baby. But he insisted, stubborn, yes, I have. It calls Anna Bauer. We lived in a large garden house, and we had a very beautiful blue car. A BMW. And proudly, he added, Ich liebe mein Auto. It's the fastest on the street. That afternoon, after work, Guadalupe went to a cyber cafe in the Pink Zone. With trembling hands, she typed in the search engine, Anna Bauer, Germany, blue BMW. I didn't expect to find anything, just a confirmation that it was all the result of the son of his son's imagination. But what appeared on the screen left her breathlessly, news from 1987 in German, with an automatic translation. Anna Bauer, 26, a nurse at Munich University Hospital, died in a car accident during a snowstorm, along with her husband, Klaus Schneider. The article was still, but Guadalupe could no longer read. The connection was undeniable. His 3-year-old son spoke of a dead woman decades earlier, on another continent, with details that no child could invent. And the worst, he spoke as if he had lived that. As if, somewhere inside him, a memory still cried for Anna. Klaus Schneider, 31-year-old BMW engineer. Guadalupe releases those words as if they were knives nailed to the paper, cutting any questions that could still be left. And then, there she was, a black and white, small, faded but clear enough photograph to freeze her blood. Anna smiled exactly as Santiago had described, blonde hair loose on her shoulders, light eyes shining as if they kept a secret, lips ajar in a joy that death had not been able to erase. Beside, Klaus, seriously, but with a kindness in the traits that even transparent through the static image. In the hands, the keys of a car. And behind him, almost like a omen, the back of a blue BMW insinuated on the edge of the photo. It cannot be. Guadalupe's voice came out in a hoarse whisper, the trembling fingers supported on the phone screen as if he could, through the touch, undo that reality. But the image did not disappear. And when he came home that night, with the weight of the discovery oppressing his chest, Santiago ran to hug her as always, small arms squeezing his legs, the smell of children's shampoo mixed with something older, something that smelled snow and pain. It was during dinner that everything collapsed again. Santiago Mejia distractedly in the tortilla soup, the fixed eyes on the plate as if there was a map that only he could read. So, without warning, without transition, the words sprang from their lips as if they were dragged by an invisible chain. Mein Auto war sehr schnell. Guadalupe dropped the fork. The metallic noise echoed in the kitchen, sharp like a scream. What did you say, my love? The boy lifted his eyes confused, as if he only realized he had spoken in another language. That my car was very fast, Mom. The voice was childish, but the words accurate. Too much. The blue BMW. Anna and I were driving in the snow, and then. He stopped. He frowned, his small fingers squeezing the edge of the table. There was something on his face that did not belong to a child, a shadow of memory, a sulk of pain dug by hands that were not his own. There was a lot of snow, he continued, his voice shaking. And then everything was very dark. The tears began to descend, thick and silent, as if they carried the weight of decades. They were not tears of a boy scared by a nightmare. They were tears of those who knew. Of those who remembered. Don't cry, my treasure. Guadalupe knelt beside him, pulling him to his lap. It was just a bad dream. It wasn't a dream. Santiago looked at her with those eyes that, on certain angles, were no longer his. They were eyes of a man who had seen the world crumble in a moment. Ich bin Klaus Barlaus Schneider. And then, with a departure voice between the fragility of 3 years and the desolation of a life interrupted, he whispered. Mom. Why can't I find Anna? On Friday morning, Guadalupe could not get out of bed. He had spent the night in course, the moist sheets of cold sweat, the watch-marking hours that dragged on as centuries. From the next room, Vin. Ham's regular breaths of Santiago, sleeping in peace as a storm was roared inside her. each class. The boy's words echoed in his mind as a code that she could not decipher, but somehow already knew. At 7 in the morning, he called the boss. The voice came out mechanical, a rehearsed script. I am sick. I won't go today. Then, with shaking hands, he dialed the number of Esperanza, his comadre, the only person he could still trust. I need a favor. A huge favor. Anything, Lupita. What it was? Do you know a doctor who understands strange things in children? A pause. The silence on the other end of the line was loaded. Strange things like? Like children who speak languages they have never learned. Esperanza took a deep breath. Look, comadre. Here is a doctor who. Well, the others think he is a little crazy. Carlos Fernandez. Psychiatrist. He lives behind weird cases, speaks of paranormal phenomena, these things. The colleagues make fun of him. Guadalupe closed his eyes. There was no more room for skepticism. Do you think he answers me today? I'll ask. But, Lupita, Esperanza's voice has dropped, almost a warning, are you sure you want to get in that? 2 hours later, Guadalupe walked through the clinic aseptic corridors in the colony doctors, the hand of Santiago tight in his. The boy was too quiet, his eyes fixed on the subway windows all the way, as if he sought something or someone between the shadows of the city. Dr. Carlos Fernandez did not look like any doctor she had ever seen. Grandy beard, round glasses that gave him an air of intellectual dislocated in time, the office full of books that went far beyond conventional psychology. Among the titles on children's disorders, Guadalupe spotted others that they made her shudder: Memories of Past Lives in Children, Documented Cases of Spontaneous Reincarnation, The Science Behind the Inexplicable. Mrs. Ramirez. The doctor spoke low, as if each word were measured. Esperanza told me a little of your case. He says his son speaks German without ever having learned him. I know it looks crazy. Guadalupe heard his voice shake. But I swear it's not an invention. It doesn't seem like crazy. Fernandez adjusted his glasses, his eyes shining with a curiosity that went beyond the professional. 15 years ago document cases like this. What we call spontaneous memories in childhood. He approached Santiago, who watched a table lamp as if she kept a mystery. The boy raised his face, and for a moment Guadalupe saw in him the same calculating look of an adult evaluating a stranger. Hello, Santiago. How are you? Hello. The answer came in Portuguese, polite. Then, without anyone asked, he added, with impeccable pronunciation. Guten Tag, Herr Doctor. Dr. Fernandez straightened in the chair, visibly impressed. Santiago, do you know what language is this? German. The boy shrugged, as if it were obvious. It's my language. Well, one of my languages. And how did you learn German? Santiago frowned, as if the question was absurd. I didn't learn. Her voice changed, getting more guttural, older. Ich spreche Deutsch seit meiner Kindheit. The doctor wrote quickly, translating to Guadalupe. He says he speaks German since childhood. Your childhood. His eyes found hers, meaningful. Santiago, can you tell me about your home? Which house? The boy tilted his head. Here or Munich? A chill traveled the spine of Guadalupe. Munich's. Santiago's eyes shone, as if a door opened inside him. Ah, that house is beautiful. It is at Rosenstrasse, number 47. It has 2 floors and a garden with red roses. Her voice was sweet, homesick. Anna takes care of them every day because she loves flowers. In winter, they get sad, but in spring, he smiled. Seeing red again is like magic. Dr. Fernandez wrote non-stop, exchanging quick looks with Guadalupe. And what else do you remember from this house? I have my office on the 2nd floor, with a large window where I see the street. Santiago closed his eyes, as if he was there. Anna cooks very well, especially on Sundays. Sauerbraten and Apfelstrudel. He licked his lips, and for a second, it was as if an adult man in habits tasted that small body. I like it when she cooks, he continued, the lowest voice. Yeah, my favorite place. The doctor leaned forward, cautiously. And your work, Santiago? Do you remember your work? I'm an engineer at BMW. The answer came instant. I work on the Motors project. My office is in Building 3, 3rd floor. My boss is Herr Mellert. He pronounced his name with Germanic accuracy, and he is serious, but he is a good person. Guadalupe felt the floor oscillate. Those details were too much. Too much for a child. Too much for coincidence. And the last day you remember in Munich? Asked Dr. Fernandez, soft, as if he feared breaking the fragile thread of memory. Santiago's expression has changed. The eyes filled with such deep sadness that they seemed to swallow the light of the room. His voice, when he came, was that of a broken man. It was December. There was a lot of snow. He swallowed hard. Anna and I went to her parents' house to dinner. It was Friday, December 18th. A tear ran down his cheek. Anna was so happy, because we were going to tell about the baby. The baby? The doctor repeated, delicate. She was pregnant. Santiago squeezed his hands, the knots of the white fingers. We just found out that week. We were going to be parents. His voice broke. She had bought a new dress to give her mother the news. A blue dress. The air in the office was heavy, as if the room itself continued its breath. And what happened next, Santiago? The road was slippery. The boy's eyes closed, as if he were there again. I drove slowly, but there was a truck, came very fast. Anna held my hand and said. He whispered in German, Klaus, ich liebe dich. A hiccup shook his small body. And then, so everything got black. And when I woke up. He looked at Guadalupe, lost. I was no longer in Munich. I was no longer with Anna. Dr. Fernandez dropped the pen. The silence that followed was so dense that it seemed tangible. And where were you when you woke up? He asked finally. Santiago wiped the tears with the back of his hand, his eyes fixed on his mother. With my new mom. In Mexico. And then, with a simplicity that broke Guadalupe's heart in two. But I want to go back to Anna. She must be very worried because I didn't get home. Access to information about Germany was virtually non-existent in your life. No movie, no documentary, no contact with German people. Nothing, doctor. Absolutely nothing. Not even cable television. And the date he mentioned, December 18th, 1987, made Guadalupe shake his head firmly. I hadn't even been born in 1987, doctor. Dr. Fernandez took a deep breath, as if measuring each word before releasing them. Mrs. Ramirez, I'll be frank with you. In 15 years of research, I've seen similar cases, but never with this level of precision. Santiago not only speaks German with native fluency, but knows exact addresses, specific dates, real names. What are you trying to tell me, doctor? That we will investigate every detail that Santiago mentioned. And if everything is confirmed, paused, as if the weight of that stifled him, well, we would have the case of the most documented reincarnation in Mexico's history. The following days have become an emotional roller coaster for Guadalupe. Dr. Fernandez plunged into the investigation with the meticulousness of a detective, contacting colleagues in Germany, requesting official files to prove every word of Santiago. Mrs. Ramirez, he said on a call on Tuesday morning, the tense but controlled voice, I need to bring Santiago tomorrow. And that it is prepared for what we can find out. Did you find something? I found everything, absolutely everything. The legs of Guadalupe weakened. He had to sit in his office chair, surrounded by the buzz of the telephones and typewriters, which suddenly sounded distant, unreal. That night Santiago had silent. The kinder teacher had reported a quiet day, but at home he looked different, more thoughtful, as if present something great about to happen. "Mommy," he said while playing with beans on his plate, "do you think Anna is looking for me?" "Why do you ask that, my love?" "Because I dreamed of her yesterday to the night. And she was standing near a beautiful lake, full of white flowers. I said I was waiting for me, but it wasn't time for me to go with her." Guadalupe felt a knot in her throat. "And what else did she say?" "May it take good care of the baby? That the baby is also looking for us." Santiago raised his eyes, too serious for a child. "Mommy, do you know where my baby is?" "Santiago, you don't have a baby. You are very small." "Yes, I have. Anna and I was going to have a baby. It was called Sophie." His eyes filled with tears. "But I don't know if she died in the accident too." The next day, at Dr. Fernandez's office, Guadalupe discovered the dimension of what was about to face. "Mrs. Ramirez," the doctor extended a folder full of documents and photographs. "These are the files I got from Munich. Klaus Schneider, an engineer at BMW, really lived at Rosenstrasse, 47. Here's her job record. 3rd floor, Building 3. Under the supervision of Hans Meller." Guadalupe examined the papers with trembling hands. Everything was there, just as Santiago had described. "And here," the doctor continued, sliding a certificate on the table, "is the death certificate. Klaus Schneider and Anna Bauer died on December 18, 1987, in a car accident during a snowstorm. He was 31 years old. She, 26. This is impossible. There is more," the doctor cut. "I contacted the Munich University Hospital, where Anna worked. According to her medical records, she had confirmed a 6-week pregnancy, a week before the accident." Santiago, who played quietly with some blocks in the corner of the office, raised his head when he heard those words. "Did you find my baby?" he asked hopefully. Dr. Fernandez knelt beside him, with an expression that mixed compassion and astonishment. "Santiago, the baby also died in the accident. Anna was pregnant when it all happened." The boy nodded, with a sadness that hurt just to see. "I already knew. That's why Anna is sad in my dreams. She lost our baby." He paused, but then he added, with a seriousness that froze the air. "Last night, she told me something strange." "What?" asked the doctor, containing his breath. "That the baby came back too. Which is elsewhere, with another family, but is also looking for me." Dr. Fernandez changed a loaded look with Guadalupe. "Santiago. Anna told you something else about this baby?" "Yes. He said he was born the same day as me at the same time. And it has a heart-shaped mark on your arm, just as Anna had." He lifted his sleeve from his shirt, revealing the drawing that was always there. "Here." Guadalupe took his hand to his mouth. On Santiago's left arm, just above the elbow, there was a light coffee-shaped birthmark, in heart-shaped. A brand that she has seen thousands of times, never giving her importance. "Mrs. Ramirez," the doctor now spoke with forced calm, "Santiago was born with this mark." "Yes, since birth. The pediatrician said it was common." "What time was he born?" "At 3:17 a.m., February 15, 2015. Dr. Fernandez wrote quickly, as if every second told. "Santiago, Anna told you where we could find this baby?" The boy closed his eyes, concentrated. "A weird name said. Ortega. And who lives near a place with many trees and a large church." He opened his eyes, bright from a certainty that was not that age. "And that the girl is called Sofia, what we were going to call our baby, but in Spanish." Dr. Fernandez was still for a few seconds, suing. "Mrs. Ramirez," he said finally, "I need your permission to something that can change everything." "What, doctor?" "I want to search the birth records of Mexico City, all the girls who were born on February 15, 2015, between 3H and 3H30, with the surname Ortega. Do you think that this girl exists? The doctor looked at Santiago, who had returned to play with the blocks, as if none of that affected him. After what we confirmed about Klaus Schneider, I think we should be prepared for anything. Because if Santiago is right, if there really is a girl named Sofia Ortega, born at the same time as he, paused, what would that mean? Guadalupe felt the world turn. That we would be facing the first documented case of fragmented reincarnation. A soul that divided into two to return together to the living world. Santiago lifted his face from the floor and smiled, with a purity that hurt. They will finally help me find my family. 3 weeks later, the phone rang at Guadalupe's apartment at 7 a.m. on Saturday. Santiago had a cereal at breakfast when his mother answered, still sleepy. Señora Ramirez. Dr. Fernandez's voice was electrified, almost breathless. I found her. What? I found Sofia Ortega. Guadalupe woke up for a blow, as if he had taken a shock. Does it exist? Not only does it exist, the doctor seemed to be safe the words so as not to scream. Mrs. Ramirez, prepare the Santiago. Let's meet a girl who can change everything we believe about life and death. The boy dropped the spoon and ran to the phone, his eyes burning with a hope that was not that life. Mama, Santiago's voice was shaking, loaded with an urgency that was not a child. She's talking about you. Guadalupe sat on the edge of the bed, the cold hands squeezing the mattress as if they needed something solid so as not to crumble. From me? Yes. The boy's eyes sparkled with a light that didn't belong to that dark room. Mama Anna said you were the only one who could help us stay together again. That you were going to understand. A shiver ran through Guadalupe's spine. How does she know my name? Santiago did not answer. I didn't need to. The question was already a confirmation. The address in Xochimilco was a maze of channels and houses painted by hand, where time seemed to have wrapped himself in himself as the roots of Ahuehuetes. Metro left them at the station with the name of the region, and the damp air of Chinampas enveloped them as an old hug. Santiago did not let go of his mother's hand for a second. We are close, repeated, the fingers squeezing hers with each step. I smell her, Mama. Like cinnamon and rain. Guadalupe wanted to ask how a 3-year-old boy knew the smell of cinnamon, but the words died in his throat. Because she also felt something, a pressure on her chest, a memory that wasn't yours, the echo of a name she had never heard before, Klaus. The taxi took them through the streets where the waters of the channels reflected the sky like broken mirrors. The homes, low and colorful, seemed to sigh stories between the cracks of the walls. Until, suddenly, Santiago pointed out. There. It was a yellow house with blue windows, so simple that it hurt. In the small garden of the front, red geraniums swing in the wind as if waving. When Alejandro Ortega opened the door, Guadalupe knew, without a doubt, that this man was not a stranger. Her eyes, brown, deep, scared, stared at her as if they had seen her before. Elsewhere. In another life. Pass, his voice was rough, but his hands, thick from working so much, trembled. Patricia is inside with. It was then that the voice came from the inside of the house, acute and crystal clear, cutting the air like a knife. Papa, Dad, Klaus has arrived. Guadalupe felt the world turn. Santiago froze, his wide eyes, the dilated pupils as if suddenly all the light in the universe had concentrated there in those few inches of dark iris. Did you hear? He whispered, without breathing. Yes, my love, she barely managed to move her lips. I heard. And then she appeared. Patricia Ortega appeared in the room with the girl in her arms, and time stopped. Sofia was small, with brown hair and large eyes like deep wells. But it was not the delicate features or the expression too wise for their age that made Guadalupe hold their breath. It was the way the child looked at Santiago, not like a strange, not like a joke, but as someone who finally met the lost piece of herself. Sophia struggled in her mother's arms, her arms extended, her fingers opening and closing in the air as if they tried to grab something invisible. "Papa Klaus!" he shouted, and the word exploded in the silence of the room like a shot. "Papa Klaus, finally you came." Santiago did not hesitate. He fell to his knees on the cement floor, his arms open, his wet face of tears that were not of sadness, but of such a deep relief. And when Sophia threw herself on him, when those two small bodies stick like one, Guadalupe knew that was not a hug. It was a reunion. "May. Na klein Sophie," Santiago muttered, and the tongue that came out of his mouth was not Spanish, but a hoarse German, dragged, as if it had been buried for decades and only now resurrected. His hands caressed the girl's hair with a tenderness that did not belong to those fingers of a child. And Sophia answered. In Spanish, yes, but with a naturalness that froze the blood of everyone in the room. "También te extrañé, Papa. I missed you too." Patricia Ortega let out a muffled moan, her hands covering her mouth as if she could hold the scream that threatened to escape. Alejandro leaned against the wall, the white fingers of so much to tighten the wood. Dr. Fernandez, this pale, forgotten notes in his hand, seemed to have seen a ghost. But no one moved. Because Sophia, with her 3 years old, had just confirmed the impossible. "Lake that shines like diamonds," Sophia repeated, her eyes lost on the water surface that reflected the last sigh of the sun. "And what does she say?" Dr. Fernandez insisted, his voice hoarse, as if the words were going to leave. The girl turned to him, too serious for her 3 years, her fingers still intertwined with those of Santiago. "Says it's okay. That we should not worry about her. A break." Such a sigh that seemed to come from a place far beyond those small lungs. "But it also says we need to do something important. That we have to go to Xochimilco, where the flowers have a water in the water. There, she will be able to see us together, even if it's just once." The silence that followed was like a blow. Dr. Fernandez knew the tradition better than anyone there. On the Day of the Dead, the Traginers became floating altars, the channels in Simpasikil rivers and candles, a golden path between this world and the other. But listening to a child, that child, describe so accurately what should only the dead should know? Santiago Guadalupe squeezed his arms around his body, as if the air had suddenly hot. "Ana told you when?" The boy nodded, his eyes shining with a certainty that did not belong to childhood. "November 2. When the sun is setting." His voice was firm, almost solemn. "She said that the door between the worlds is more open." Guadalupe felt the same chill as usual, the one who climbed the back of the neck as cold fingers. "I had already learned, at the expense of nights in clear and nightmares that were not only yours, that questioning Santiago was useless." "But accept? Meeting what the living should not seek?" "Doctor," his voice trembled, but not out of fear. "For something worse, hope. Do you think we should go, Miss Ramirez?" Fernandez adjusted his glasses, his fingers shaking slightly as he flipped into his notes as if science could contain what was about to happen. "After all we have seen," he said finally, "I think we should document." His eyes found Guadalupe's, and there was no doubt in them, just a cold resolution. "If Ana will speak up, we need to be there. With cameras. With witnesses. With proof." November 2 arrived as a promise or a sentence. The two families met on Cuemanco's barrack at dusk, the heavy air with the scent of copal and the wetland. Patricia Ortega carried of the smell of cinnamon and death, pan de muerto still hot, thick chocolate in clay jars, Simpasikil in so vibrant curls that they seemed to bleed light. Guadalupe squeezed against the chest yellowish photographs, faces that time should not have erased. "Are you sure that?" Alejandro held Sophia's hand too hard, the white fingers knots. His voice was a wire of razor. "Papa Alejandro," Santiago held his arm, the small but firm fingers like roots. "Ana waited a long time. We cannot fail with her." The Traginero, Don Esteban, a man with callous hands and deep scouts like wells, removed in silence. 40 years in that maze of water, 40 years listening to stories of souls who did not want to leave. But that was different. The sun spilled on the canal, painting everything in gold and blood. Santiago and Sofia sat in the bow, the straight back as statues, their hands intertwined. From time to time they murmured something in German words that sounded like prayers, as secrets that the wind carried before adults could decipher them. Do you see something? Fernandez adjusted the camera, the zoom shivering slightly in his hands. Yet. Nope, Sofia didn't take her eyes out of the water. But she's close. I can feel. Half an hour passed. Other boats slid alongside them, families with lit candles, children with painted faces of smiling skulls. The smell of flowers and burnt wax mingled with that of the sludge, that of time. Until Santiago got up. Suddenly. As if an invisible rope had pulled it. There, he pointed out. There is Ana. Everyone followed the direction of his finger. At first, nothing. Only the shake from the sun dying in the water, the shadows of the crying sauces stretching like long fingers. Then Sofia also got up. Mama Ana, he called, the voice breaking not fear, but something so pure that it hurt. Mama Ana, we're here. And that's when she appeared. First, just a blur between the fog that climbed the channel. A tremor in the air, such as heat distorting the light. Then, gradually, the figure solidified, a young woman, blonde hair as golden strands melted by the twilight. His white dress floated over water, not as fabric, but as a memory. And his eyes blue, just as Santiago had described, they looked at the children with such a vast love that it seemed to drown the world. My God, Patricia Ortega blessed himself, his lips moving in a prayer he could not complete. I see her, Guadalupe took her hand to her mouth, tears dripping without permission. Ana lifted a hand in greeting. His voice came as a sigh between the leaves, like the echo of something that had been said 1,000 times, but only now was heard. Mein Liebstenkender. My most beloved children. Santiago and Sofia cried. Not of sadness. Of joy, such a profound joy that the chest was departed, which made the air vibrate. Ana, are you okay? Shouted Santiago, the tears running down his face. Are you not sad? She smiled. And that smile was the sun after the storm, it was the first sigh after a dive too long. I'm at peace, Mats. Her voice was melody and wind. Seeing them like this, healthy, beloved. It gives me all the happiness I need. When are we going to be together again? Sofia squeezed Santiago's hands, as if he feared he could disappear as well. Ana approached a little more. Trajinera shook lightly, as if the weight of its presence was real. Don Esteban had stopped rowing, his mouth open, his eyes wide. When they lived the life that came to live, she said, the voice now a silver thread. When they have learned everything they need to learn in these new bodies. A silence. So even softer. But no, I'm always with you. In every smile. In every moment of happiness. Each time they take care of each other. Fernandez filmed, though he knew everyone knew that the camera would not capture anything but water and light. But it didn't matter. Because they saw her. Everyone saw her. Ana. Santiago extended his arms, as if he could reach her. Is there anything we need to do? She smiled again, and this time there was a shadow of sadness in her eyes, not for her, but for them. Just one thing, my loves, his voice was almost a whisper now. Live. Live fully. Love deeply. Be happy. A sigh. This is the best way to honor the love we share. His body began to fade, as smoke carried by the breeze. But his smile remained until the last moment. Ich liebe euch. Für immer. I love them. Forever. And then, there was nothing more. Only the smooth swing of the Trajinera, the smell of flowers, the weight of a silence that was at the same time farewell and promise. Santiago and Sofia hugged, crying and laughing, as if the heart could not decide between pain and joy. Did everyone see? Santiago wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, his voice shaking. The 4 adults nodded, dumb. Don Esteban has been slowly being blessed, the trembling fingers. In 40 years in these channels, his voice was a scrape of dry leaves. I've never seen anything so. She swallowed hard. So beautiful. On the way back, under the first stars, the children looked different. Lighter. As if they had finally found something they didn't even know they were looking for. Won't they get sad anymore? Guadalupe ran a hand over Santiago's hair, as if he could hold that moment forever. No, Mommy, he replied, leaning his head on his shoulder. Now we know Ana is fine. And when it's the right time. ISO. Let's be together again. Sofia nestled against Alejandro, her eyes closed, as if she already dreamed of this reunion. And until then, Santiago murmured, looking at the 2 families gathered in the Traginera, the hands that intertwined, the no longer forced smiles, we have people who love us very much. And for the first time in years, they believed. Photographs. But what caught the most attention was like that of children had found, against all the odds, a balance between what they were and what they are. It was not a battle, it was not a division, it was a rare harmony, as if the memories of the past had intertwined with the present, weaving something greater than themselves. Dr. Fernandez, Santiago called, running toward him, his eyes shining with an urgency that only those who carry secrets in his chest knows. The Lord brought the letters of Germany. The doctor smiled, taking a yellowish envelope out of the jacket, marked by time and foreign seals. It is clear. And I have something that will touch your hearts, he said, handling him carefully, as if that paper kept not just words, but pieces of souls. Heinrich and Margaret Bauer, now over 80, had accompanied the case from the beginning, first with skepticism, then with a mixture of pain and hope that only those who lost know what it is. Anna's parents had no more strength to travel, but their hands, shaking by age, had written every line of that letter as if it were one last hug. Santiago and Sofia were side by side on a park bench, the shoulders glued, the synchronized breaths. Although the Spaniard was his day-to-day language, German still flowed among them as an old river, especially at times when emotions overflowed. They opened the envelope together. Dear Santiago and Sofia. We know this may sound strange, but after talking to Dr. Fernandez over these years, we believe with all our hearts that you carry the souls of our dear Klaus and our beloved Anna. We want to know that they were the most good people we ever know. They loved each other deeply, and their biggest dream was to form a family. The day they died, Anna was radiant. Finally they would be parents. Perhaps fate wanted this dream to be fulfilled in another way. Perhaps you are proof that true love never dies, it just transforms itself. We sent some photographs of Klaus and Anna, as well as objects that belonged to them. Anna always wore a necklace with a small heart that said für immer. Klaus had a watch he won from his father. We want you to stay with them. Live happily, dear children. Live the life that Klaus and Anna couldn't end, but do it with joy. This would be the best way to honor your memory. With all our love. Heinrich and Margaret Bauer. The words fell upon them like petals, light and heavy at the same time. When they finished, Dr. Fernandez removed a golden necklace with a tiny heart where he read für immer, and an old pocket watch, his still intact dial, marking time with a soft, persistent ICTTAC. Santiago took the clock like a sacred fragment. When opening it, the mechanism still worked, as if it had never stopped counting the seconds between one life and another. It's just as I remembered, he murmured in German, his fingers shaking slightly. Mein Vater gab es mir, als ich mein Studium beendet. My father gave me when I graduated from the university. Sofia held the necklace, passing her thumb over her recorded heart. When putting it around the neck, the metal warmed against his skin as if he had always belonged to her. It seems familiar, he whispered, closing his eyes for a moment. As if it had been here before. Guadalupe and Patricia exchanged a look. After 5 years, it was still difficult to assimilate those moments when his children spoke of memories they should not have, when the past and the present were merging without warning. But there was no fear anymore. Only a silent reverence for the mystery. Santiago. Sofia, Dr. Fernandez hesitated, his voice slightly hoarsely. I need to ask one thing. Do you still dream of Ana? The two looked at each other before answering. Santiago was the first to speak, with a calm that did not match his 8 years. Not as before. Now, when it appears, it is happy. A shy smile. She says she's proud of life I'm building here. Sofia has been looking for, her fingers still playing with the necklace. Last time, she told me that Klaus and she can finally rest. Because they know that their love continues in us. The doctor felt his throat tighten. For 5 years, he had documented every detail of that case with scientific rigor: exams, testimonials, analysis. But there, in that park, under the golden light of the afternoon, he understood that he was facing something that no graph or theory could explain. It was living proof that love does not bow to the laws of physics. It persists. And the future? He asked finally. What do you plan? Santiago and Sofia exchanged one of those looks that only those who share a story beyond time understands. Let's continue to be brothers, Santiago said firmly. Even without the same blood, we are family. We will always protect ourselves. Sofia added, her eyes shining. When we are big, we will go to Germany. We want to see the house where Klaus and Anna lived. And thank the grandparents Heinrich and Margret for keeping our memories. Santiago smiled, looking at the channel, where the flowers danced over the water. But for now, we just want to be children. Study, play ball, make our mothers proud. Guadalupe pulled him to such a tight hug that he almost lifted him from the floor. You already make us proud, my life. Every day. Patricia involved Sofia in her arms, kissing her hair. You have taught us that love is stronger than anything. While families were preparing to cut the birthday cake, Santiago and Sofia moved away a little to the edge of the channel. The February sun made the water twinkle, and the flowers that floated on the surface formed a carpet of color, as if nature also celebrated that day. Do you feel? Asked Sofia, softly. Santiago nodded, without having to explain. She's here. They didn't see her, but Anna's presence was like a warm hug, a soft shadow that surrounded them. Santiago leaned over the water, his fingers brushing the surface. Danke, Anna, he thanked German. Thanks for showing us that love never ends. A light breeze moved in the flowers, as if the channel responded. At that afternoon, while the two families laughed and ate cake together, Dr. Fernandez closed their notebook. The final document would have more than 300 pages: faiths, photographs, reports, psychological analyses. But the conclusion would fit in one sentence. Santiago Ramirez and Sofia Ortega had irrefutably proved that human consciousness can survive physical death. And that love, when true, does not know borders, not even time. When the night fell and each family went to their house, Santiago and Sofia walked hand in hand, laughing at something that only they understood. Suddenly Santiago stopped, looking at adults with seriousness that did not match their age. Do you know something? Anna told me once death is not the end of anything. It's just a pause between chapters. Guadalupe frowned, intrigued. And what does that mean? Sofia smiled, with wisdom that seemed to come from many lives. That we are the continuation of a love story that started a long time ago, and that will never end. And it was like that, between laughs that mingled with tears and words that looked woven with gold wires, which the night became more than a simple encounter. It became an invitation. An invitation for you, which now holds these pages between your hands, not only read about these lives, but feel their weight and lightness. To allow these voices from Santiago, with their early wisdom, of Sofia, with his calm that calms down to the winds, from Guadalupe, with your curiosity that opens doors, echo within you as a call. Because stories like this are not made to be consumed and forgotten. They are seeds. And every seed needs someone who plants her, to water her carefully, to wait for her when the earth looks dry. Then close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. And ask yourself, what would I take with me if this was the last night? Not the answer you think you should give, but the one that burns your chest when no one is looking. And when you open your eyes again, come. Follow me on the next pages, where each word is a bridge between what was and what is yet to be written. Because, deep down, you already know, the best part of a story is not the end, but the certainty that it continues, and that you can be part of it.